Hello everyone, Find Me Anole here. Hope y'all are having a wonderful day so far. Today I want to talk about what I think we can expect to see at this year's Halloween Horror Nights. Now this video is a bit long overdue in the channel since I was planning on making it in January, but it's still not too late for me to chime in the conversation since we're still pretty early on in the year as of this recording. Now this video is actually going to be divided into two parts. The first part consisting of wishful thinking and just me throwing out some stuff that I would personally like to see at Horror Nights. And the second part of the video will be made up of legitimate speculation where I'm going to be discussing some things that actually have a really good chance of appearing at this year's event. Right before we dive in, I do want to preface that I will mostly be talking about stuff that's exclusive to Hollywood since the California theme park is the one that I attend, but some of this discussion can also be applied to Orlando's Horror Nights. So let's not waste any more time. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now all the properties that I'm going to list in this section of the video, once again, is stuff that I really do not expect to see at this year's Horror Nights or anytime soon for a matter of fact. This is just some stuff that I would personally like to see, stuff that's in my personal wish list. With the success of The Last of Us last year, I think it's safe to assume that Universal is open to dip their toes in the video game realm once again. And if you ask me, there is no other game that is more deserving of a haunted house than Resident Evil. Now, unlike The Last of Us, the Resident Evil series has so many games under its belt, meaning there is so much material that Universal can pull for a potential haunted house. Now, if you ask me, I think it would be really cool if they started off with Resident Evil 2. Now, Resident Evil 2, just like The Last of Us, is a really big game with so many little story arcs that you had to complete. So I think it would make the most sense if they focused only on the police station. Seeing the police station, seeing all the zombies and all the different characters would be really cool. Now some of you are probably thinking that this might actually be a legitimate possibility, given the success of The Last of Us, but I think Resident Evil would be way too expensive of a maze for Universal to do. They would have to blow all of their maze budget to this house alone for all the potential puppets and environments they have to recreate if they really want to do the game justice. And I just know recreating all of these characters and environments in live action would not be cheap. Now, in terms of horror movies that I would like to see, the first one that pops up into mind is the original Evil Dead franchise. We've gotten the remake. We've gotten Ash vs. Evil Dead. We've gotten Evil Dead Rise just last year. We've done basically everything from that franchise, but the 3 movies that make that franchise so iconic. Come on, Murdy, make it happen. I would also like to see Universal take another stab at music houses. And of course, you have the obvious picks that everyone will like to see, like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Slipknot, yada yada yada. But me personally, I'd be down to see The Weeknd again. I know he has one final album releasing sometime this year, and I think a potential house could be a great way to promote that album. I want to see John Murdy tackle another Orlando original, just like with Scarecrow. I honestly thought that was going to be the new norm with Hollywood going forward, but he didn't do anything like that in 2023, which I thought was pretty odd. And I was looking through all of Orlando's original houses that I think could be great Hollywood mazes. The first thing that came to mind was Slaughter Cinema, but if they were to bring that to Hollywood, I think it would draw way too many comparisons to Cinema Slasher from Knott's Scary Farm. I also thought about Dead Exposure, the one with the UV zombies, but I think that would be too similar to Curse of Pandora's Box in terms of, aesthetics. Another one that I could definitely see at Hollywood is Nightingales, and if I remember correctly, this was actually rumored at one point for last year's Horror Nights, so I mean, hell, I'd be down to see that. The next couple of movies I'm about to list are just total shots in the dark, no rhyme or reason, I just want to see them at the event at some point in time. It, a big franchise that is one of those big dream IPs that people would love to see in Horror Nights. If they announced it, people would go crazy, myself included. Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. I know Eli Roth has a really close relationship with John Murdy, so seeing a maze based on that movie, that would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool to see. And Return of the Living Dead. Every once in a while, they'll throw in that dark horse 80s cult classic movie as a haunted house, and I feel like this movie would be a perfect contender for that kind of house. Now that I got all the stuff that I want to see as houses out of the way, I want to talk about some other stuff regarding HHN Hollywood. Scare zones. For the past few years, I found the scare zones to be pretty lacking in terms of decor or aesthetics or just overall vision that they're going for. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy them. The scare actors are always great in the scare zones and the vibes are just immaculate, cool, fun party vibes, but I prefer a more spooky, more traditional Halloween-y aesthetic, similar to the Knott's Scary Farm scare zones. The zones could definitely have a lot more atmosphere, and it just doesn't help that there's only 3 scare zones nowadays, when back then we had 5 or sometimes 6. Which brings me to the last thing that I want to talk about that I really want to see back at HHN Hollywood, the backlot, particularly the Metro sets. Back then in 2016, 17, 18, there were 3 mazes in the backlot, and there were 2 scare zones too, including the Toxic Tunnel. Not only was it this really cool thing for all the long-time movie-loving Universal Studios fans, but it was also a good way to spread the crowds, and it was a really good thing for crowd control. I have no idea why Universal stopped doing that, and I just really miss that whole era of Horror Nights in general. I really want to go back to the backlot. Now that we got all of the stuff from my personal wish list out of the way, let's talk about some legitimate speculation. Let's actually make some real predictions of what might actually come to Horror Nights this year. Now, even though I believe some of the properties I'm going to list do have a really good chance of coming at this year's event, at the end of the day, these are still predictions, since we still know little to nothing about this year's event. With that being said, I'm going to be genuinely surprised if they don't include Five Nights at Freddy's for 2024. This movie, which was produced by Blumhouse and is based on a widely popular video game series, became one of the biggest, most financially successful horror movies to come out in recent years. So basically all the signs point to yes when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's being a haunted house this year. Beetlejuice. Now this one may seem like a bit of a stretch since we were set to have a Beetlejuice house in Hollywood years ago, but that eventually never saw the light of day, so there may be some kind of rocky relationship there with Warner Brothers, but just hear me out. There is a new Beetlejuice movie coming out, and it would be stupid for Warner Brothers to not allow Universal to make a haunted house to promote the movie. In terms of video games that Universal would like to make as a haunted house, I think the most likely option right now is Silent Hill. Not only is there a new Silent Hill remake game coming out sometime this year or maybe next year, but there's also a movie set to be released later this year as well. Universal does have a past with Silent Hill, so they could easily make another one to promote the game and the movie. In my speculation video last year, I brought up the idea of Terrifier being at Horror Nights, but I didn't think that was ever going to happen because it is more of a smaller budget horror movie that's not necessarily theme park friendly. But I think this year, it generally has a really good chance of actually appearing at the event. Not only is there a new Terrifier movie coming out later in September, but the director of the movies actually has expressed interest in making a haunted house based on the movies. Now, Horror Nights in Hollywood loves to bring back fan favorite mazes, and I think the maze that is most likely set to return this year is probably Chucky, not only because of the 3rd season that just came out recently, but that maze was probably really expensive to make because of all the Chucky animatronics, so I figured Universal wouldn't let that money go to waste just for a one-time use. Another house I think we'll see again is Monstros, but with different monsters this time. Given the success of last year's Monstros house and the La Llorona house, I think the Latin American monsters are here to stay for the next couple years. I believe we will also see the return of the Exterminators, but this time as a haunted house. It seemed like last year's Terror Tram was fairly well received with fans, and I feel like Larry Larva is the type of character that John Murray would just not let go to waste for just 1 year. They could definitely expand upon this character. But if the Exterminators aren't going to be the Terror Tram this time around, what's going to be the theme this year? Well, this one is always a bit tricky when it comes to speculation because the theme of the Terror Tram could literally be anything. It could be Purge again. It could be Halloween Harry again. They can make yet another original character that rivals him and Larry Larva. But if you ask me, the only thing I can think of is probably Horrors of Blumhouse. You know, just have a bunch of Blumhouse characters invade the backlot and stuff. You know, that seems like a safe and easy option as of now. And staying on the subject of Blumhouse, I do think the Purge Dangerous Waters show might come back this year. It was a pretty successful show. It was a really big crowd eater. Everyone seemed to enjoy it, so I don't see why they wouldn't bring it back for this year. To close off my speculation, I want to show you guys the map that I made. It just consists of all the stuff that I've already talked about, stuff that we might actually see at this year's event. But again, take this with a grain of salt. None of these might actually come to the event at all. It could be an entirely different event. But that's the beauty of speculation, you know, just putting out your own predictions, putting out what you would personally like to see at the event, you know. And to me, that's what makes early year speculation so fun. You know, just having little to nothing to work with and just gathering our thoughts of what might come to Horror Nights. That is until an anonymous source leaks all the information for this year, but that's a discussion for another video. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you saw, go ahead and click the like button. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and click the subscribe button. And also, down in the comments, what would you like to see at this year's Horror Nights? If you stuck around to the very end of the video, thank you so much for watching. And until then, see you all in the fog.